Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Within Range Coaching Podcast. I'm Ranger, certified holistic success coach, and in this podcast, I'm breaking down the journey that entrepreneurs face as they start their organization, find solutions to the roadblocks in their way, and create an impact that lasts. So if you're an entrepreneur, nonprofit leader, or purpose-driven community member that wants to learn how to grow your impact and develop yourself as the person behind the mission, then this podcast is for you. I know you're just as eager to get started as I am, so let's jump right in. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's episode. At the time of recording, I'm just about 3 or so days away from crossing the state line, going from Georgia to Alabama on my walk across the country. But since coming into Georgia about a week and a half ago, I've been in contact with a gentleman named Tom, and he's been helping me find places to stay, helping get in contact with a few different groups like the American Legion, Veterans of Foreign Wars, and he even opened up his home and let me stay with him and his dog for a few nights as I was passing through the Atlanta area. And the very first time that Tom picked me up from the parking lot of a CVS a few miles away from his house, I was greeted by him and a huge, fluffy, furry cloud in the back seat of his Jeep. He pulled up, we shook hands, and out of the back of the Jeep jumped a 130-pound Great Pyrenees named Normandy. And just kind of watching them interact with each other, it was really just so obvious that Tom and Normandy were joined at the hip. Everywhere Tom walked, Normandy was just a few feet behind. After talking for ourselves a bit about ourselves, I asked him how this hunk of cloud ended up in his lap, and he told me that he and his daughter work with a local Great Pyrenees rescue here in the Atlanta area. And as soon as Tom told me that, and I got to experience Normandy, I knew I needed to get someone from the rescue on the podcast as soon as possible. And the stars aligned, schedules worked out, and that's just what we got today. So we are joined by the intake director of the Great Pyrenees Rescue of Atlanta. She runs her own business called Simply Perfect Grooming and Training and is the pack leader of over 10 foster dogs. Everyone, we're joined now by Sabine Elbert. Sabine, thank you so much for hanging out with us today so late on a Saturday.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. No, I mean, it sounds like you guys got a pretty solid rescue going on. I'm just checking out your website and looking at your guys' experience. And I'm excited to chitter chat a little bit more. I think what excites me the most about our conversation is that you guys are a breed-specific rescue.
Yes, that is correct. We're working with Great Pyrenees only.
Yeah. No, that's so cool. I'm excited to hear more about it. And before we get started, I do want to ask you, what is your intention for today's episode?
My intention would be to raise awareness to the crisis of all the, not our rescue only, all the rescues, all the shelters in the South that are inundated with owner surrenders and a lot of people turning in their dogs for different reasons. And we're all facing that and feeling that because it's really hard if you have to turn them away. We don't have enough foster homes. We don't have enough spots to take them in at all. And it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can hear it in your voice. I can even see it on you, just how, I mean, I was telling you off camera for a bit, when I ran or helped run the reptile rescue in the Sacramento area, we ran into the same problem. Just people surrendering animals left and right. It felt like every day we were getting at least 2 or 3 inquiries. But with that being said, like what are like the common reasons that you see that people typically surrender the animals for? I mean, Great Pyrenees are no joke, just seeing the size of them, but what is it about this specific breed that warrants a specific shelter for them?
I think a lot of people have to give up their dogs because of the economy. Everything is super expensive and a lot of people are losing their homes, having to move in with their parents or finding an apartment, and it's just hard to have such a big dog cooped up in an apartment with no yard. So that's a big part. And sometimes it's medical reasons. A lot of them have joint issues or need surgeries, which is very expensive, and people cannot swallow that because it's really thousands of dollars for such a big dog, especially. And we are taking in some of those dogs, whatever we can do at that point, because those need a different kind of foster home too that is equipped for medical care.
Yeah, just a lot of just really socioeconomic issues, right? It's the economy, it's this. Yeah. I mean, just like humans, medical bills for animals are insanely high, which I guess makes sense for the most part. But yeah, especially because if for Great Pyrenees, I know that for most breeds of dogs that there's usually like a breed specific issue that arises over time.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And you're saying for Great Pyrenees, that's typically like the joints, legs. Is that just from the size of them, or what causes that?
Yeah, it's from the size of them. And in the past couple of years, there were more studies done that you should spay and neuter them later because the bones need to be fully grown and matured. So if you spay them too early when they're too young, they're not fully grown, not fully developed. And a lot of them are having hip dysplasia or ACL tears. Their knees go out and you need to do surgeries there. And a couple of my own dogs had issues like that too. So it's a big expense to go through those surgeries.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Yeesh. Well, we'll get more into that. Let's put a pin in that for just a second about the specific characteristics of the breed, because they're, like I said, hanging out with Normandy for just a few days, I was kind of sold on it. So just how great they are generally. So what I'm curious about is, how did you get involved in all of this? Because I know you have your company, the grooming and training aspect, that's also Great Pyrenees specific, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So you're deep in, I mean, you're wearing a Great Pyrenees shirt in the interview. So yeah, you're deep into the breed. So what got you involved in it? Like, what's your background and history and how you got here?
Well, I used to live in Italy and found one Great Pyrenees abandoned on the interstate. I took him in and moved back with him to Germany, brought him over to the United States because of my husband's job. We came over here. And then for the first couple of years, I was volunteering in elementary school until all of our kids were through. And then I needed a new hobby and ran into Great Pyrenees Rescue and thought, okay, maybe I do some fostering. And I started with fostering dogs and fostering litters, and then took over the intake position. And I'm doing that since about 5 years now. And my own pack grew, and we always have a lot of foster dogs at home too. So there's always a lot of coming and going here.
Gotcha. What I think is always so interesting, hearing people talk about what got them involved in their business, hobby, job, breeds, this and that, is how it always feels like it just happens by accident. Like you were in the right place at the right time in Italy, of all places, and just kind of fell into your lap almost.
Yeah, definitely. Yes.
Yeah. So what is it about the breed that's kind of kept you in it for so long and dedicated to them specifically?
I'm really kind of madly in love with the breed. They're just amazing to me. They're big dogs. I always loved big dogs. I grew up with boxers, which are bigger dogs, but then the Great Pyrenees is putting another level of big on that. They are just wonderful, loyal dogs to me. And even the ones that have issues, I have a special place in my heart for them too. And I'm taking a lot of dogs that are more challenged on the behavioral side. That's how I became a dog trainer too, because I really want to work with them and want to help the rescue more to be able to place these dogs too, so they have a chance to find a home. I just really love the breed, the whole look of them and the way they're acting.
just kind of everything that goes on with having a Great Pyrenees. It sounds like you're just, because again, I can see you, I can hear it in your voice, just how, I don't know, connected you feel.
Yeah, I do. And my biggest dream was always like to have a pack of dogs. And that's what happened over the last couple of years. So I have 10 of my own. And then I have 3 fosters here right now.
Gotcha. So how did that, so it sounds like that was kind of, I don't know, like started by having boxers growing up. Is that where that would come from, or?
Yeah, that was the growing up with dogs from birth on, basically. I just always had a big heart for dogs, and then got hooked to the Great Pyrenees when I was in Italy, and then over here when I started working with the rescue. That was just how it all fell into place. And then in 2017, I started fostering for Great Pyrenees Rescue, and then Christmas time, they sent a text message out looking for somebody who can take in a pregnant mama. And I thought, okay, we're not going anywhere, we're not traveling. And so we tried it out, and since then I'm doing a lot of litters for the rescue, which I love doing. It's a lot of work, but working from home, and it always allows for me to slip out of my work for a couple of minutes and taking care of the puppies, cleaning up real quick, and going back and forth.
Gotcha. How cool. Okay. So, and then to be clear, so you work full time in your business, the grooming and training portion, or do you have something else that you also do?
Well, something else that I also do, I have a family of 6.
Oh, okay. So that's the other job.
Yeah, that's the other job. Yeah, which is not paid very well, but
You're not paid very well.
yeah. No, I'm doing mostly rescue work, and then my grooming and training business. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So I definitely want to ask you more about the grooming and training business, but let's just kind of stick on the rescue for just a few more minutes.
Yeah.
What's kind of the background or history of the rescue that you know of? Like, how did that? I think I'm just so infatuated and like excited about the idea of the breed specific, because a while ago I got to stay with a couple that run a exotic bird rescue or sanctuary.
Yeah.
And I just think it's so interesting that they got so invested in that specific type of animal. So like, how did the rescue come up into play, and why specifically is it in Atlanta, I guess?
So the rescue was founded in 2010, and it's John Heldrick is our founder, and he fell in love with the breed too. He thought he saw a big white retriever and learned that it was a Great Pyrenees, and he fell in love with the breed and wanted to help the breed, and just founded the rescue back then. And since then, we're going since 14 years now.
Wow. Okay. So with that being said, is it just that there's a ton of Great Pyrenees that need to be given up specifically in the Atlanta, Georgia area, or like where do the dogs come from?
So we are working mostly in Georgia, but we're also pulling dogs from Tennessee, Alabama, some of the Carolinas. There are a lot of farms out there that have unwanted puppies that are coming in, or then a lot of people that just really fell in love with the breed and have them as pets. A lot of backyard breeders, unfortunately, and that falls into place this year, especially because there are whole litters turned into shelters, and also, unfortunately, whole litters and the parents euthanized because there's no space where they could go. So there's a lot going on here in the South, in the more rural areas, with dogs being bred, or even on farms. The farmers often do not even know that the female is pregnant. And at some point they find the puppies out there, but also a lot of adult dogs that we're taking in.
Yeah, and I think that might be an important clarification to make too. With the Great Pyrenees breed, why were they created essentially? Like what's their job typically, I guess?
The Great Pyrenees, they are a guarding breed. They were used, or still used, mainly for sheep and goats, to guard the herds out there and keep predators away.
Yeah, and I'm sure when you have a, what is it? What'd you say earlier? A white golden retriever that is the size of a small bear.
Yeah.
I'm sure it does a very good, and I got to hear Normandy bark a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear how they would be very, very protective and very good at their jobs. So, okay, so and again, it's really falling into that socioeconomic issue, because I talked with another general dog rescue that was in, where was it? In South Carolina, I think near Columbia. And they were saying it's a very similar thing that, I mean, again, with the reptile rescue, I heard it all the time. We're moving, we can't afford it, vet bills, this and that. I don't know if this is a weird question or not, but like, what have you seen work for folks to take into consideration either before they get their animals or after or during to kind of prevent that? Like, have you guys seen any cases where it's worked out differently? Or I'm not even sure what I'm really asking, but maybe you.
So the only thing that really helps, I mean, whenever we are getting owner surrender applications, John is calling single one, talking to them about what's going on and how can we help. And we have another trainer that is working with us who is also a behaviorist. So all these calls are going to him mostly, and he's trying to help people if it's really like a behavioral situation or something that can be fixed with training. He would help over the phone, and sometimes it works out, but often it's sadly when the people are contacting us, so much has happened already behavioral that they are basically at the end of the rope, and they're like, no, we're not even trying anymore. Dog needs to go, which is a sad situation because sometimes they have the dog for years and all of a sudden the dog gets kicked out, which is hard on the dog. It's hard on us too because we need to figure out where to put them best. If you have a dog that is coming from a family that lived in the house for years, you don't want to stick them into boarding. But we do not have enough foster homes that we could take more. We are really inundated with the ones that are every day. We have like 5-6 owner surrender applications coming in. And then there's a lot of dogs in all the shelters around us that need places. So this year is really extremely tough.
Yeah. Is it this year specifically, like the 2024 year, or just the last, year and a half or so that's been... Is it just now that you guys are getting full, or is it that this year is particularly bad?
So after COVID, it started where people had to go, everybody got a dog because they were home.
Yep.
And then they had to go back into the offices. So the dog started having separation anxiety because from all the time home, all of a sudden nobody was home at all. That was how the whole thing started. And we got a lot of dogs in, but then every year since then, it's getting worse and worse. And now the economy is playing a role too. So I would say this year is extremely bad because there are so many dogs that need to be rehomed, that need to find a place out of the shelter. It's, in my opinion, it's the worst this year so far.
Yeah, no, I hear that. I keep referencing the reptile rescue stuff, but during COVID, I worked in a reptile store, like a specialty pet store, I guess. And yeah, I saw just every day selling a whole bunch of animals. The people that were there for a few years were saying that, wow, this is the most we've ever sold. This is crazy. People don't typically buy animals like this. And then once I took over the reptile rescue and I started working with them, around end of 2021, that's when we got inundated. So kind of lining up with exactly what you're saying, people started going back to work, realizing that's not what they wanted, that money plays a factor. Yeah. So it's interesting just how many parallels there are, I mean, on completely different sides of the country, that those events are causing kind of those same issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hey guys, Ranger of Recordings Past jumping in real quick to talk to all of you coffee and tea lovers. Are you ready to brew up something amazing? If so, I've got just the thing for you. Cold-Blooded Caffeine Company. This isn't just any coffee, it's your ticket to a great boost of energy that helps save the rainforest. Trey and McKendrick, the founders, were able to find the perfect intersection between wildlife conservation and high-quality coffee. With each sip, you're supporting wildlife conservation efforts in coffee-producing countries, since 5% of every bag sold goes directly to protecting our planet's precious ecosystems. I've been hooked for a couple years now, ever since I picked up my first few bags at the Sacramento Reptile Show, which is exactly why when I had the opportunity to partner with them for my walk across the country, I jumped at it. My personal favorite has been the U.S. Ark Bourbon Barrel Aged Blend, followed closely by their classic Rainforest Blend. They also have multiple flavors of tea, so there's something for everyone. So drink up, make a difference, and savor every moment. Go ahead and check the link in the show notes for the referral link for some coffee, and don't forget to use the code RANGER at checkout to get 10% off. Cold-Blooded Caffeine Company, coffee with a cause. Hit the link in the show notes and grab some purpose-driven coffee today. So I think that's what's also interesting about what you're saying is on the behavior side, they typically call in and what was his name? Was it John?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That John and you and the other trainer kind of help talk them through the behavior issues, or how does that process kind of work?
Yeah. So he would send our information, and then we're getting in contact with the person that is surrendering the dog or trying to surrender the dog and see if we can help, which is more over the phone advice. But then some people are open to basically to sign up for training sessions with another trainer in the area, just open to work with the dog, while others are set and they made their decision that the dog has to be rehomed.
Yeah, I'm curious about your thoughts, because I have a belief that getting professional training for a dog is maybe not as necessary, but is essentially a requirement just alongside food, general care, grooming. Like, what is your thought on the importance of getting training for dogs, like from an early age?
I think it's very important at any age, even the dogs that are in the rescue. When we adopt them out, I always try to stress that to new adopters, because it forms a really good bond between the owner and the dog. Trust is a big issue. So the dog comes from a shelter where it was in a kennel for how many days, weeks, often months. And all of a sudden it's with a new family. And of course they hear the story about the dog and they think, oh my God, we have to do our very best to love that dog. And they open their hearts and their homes to the dog, and the dog is allowed on the couch and on the bed and everywhere. And in a couple of weeks we're having issues, because the Great Pyrenees is a breed that also at some point they want to take over at home. If you are not controlling them in a way, if you're not a good leader to them, they want to take over. And, then the issues are starting when the dog growls because the husband wants to sit on the couch, or you want to send them off the bed because now you want to go to sleep and they growl at you. So those are issues that are starting later down the road. So we are trying to educate people as good as we can. Unfortunately, not everybody is open to it, or a lot of people are not even really listening because they think they had dogs before, often other breeds, and they have it covered. But Great Pyrenees is a different breed. It's not a big white retriever. It's not a lab. They are very stubborn. They're acting differently. They're learning differently. They are very mellow. They do not want to do much work in the sense of training. So you have to work on their pace if they're open to learn more, to work more. And So I definitely think training is a very important part.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that I've heard it put that way, that it's not necessarily training. 'Cause I guess when I think of training, it's, sit, stop, roll over, come, like just having control over the dog. But what I like about what you just said is that it's more so about building trust.
Yeah.
It's deeper than just the dog will listen when I say certain things. It's like trust, respect, and I guess just kind of like setting boundaries and showing,
Yeah.
like in their own doggy way of understanding.
Yeah.
How much do those behaviors that come in over time are related to them being herd protectors? Because it almost sounds like it's like herding at times, or I don't know, like what, like those natural instincts. Is that what you're trying to like work with, or how does that play in?
Yeah, definitely. We have a lot of people that are calling us, even if, grandkids are coming in, or if they have younger kids and the dog starts like nipping their booties and trying to push them in a certain area. And then they're calling and they're saying the dog is nipping the kids and we don't know what to do or what is going on. And we're telling them that the dog is basically guarding and herding the kids in a certain area because they want to keep them safe. And that's something that needs to be worked with and trained. So the dog understands that these are the people that belong to the family. They live in the home. These are the ones that I'm protecting, but I do not need to nip them.
They don't need to be nipped to get them to go where you want them to go.
Yeah, exactly. But that's just, from their instincts. A lot of them are doing that.
Gotcha. It's just very natural to them.
Yes.
Yeah, and again, it doesn't sound like it's necessarily training those natural instincts out of them. It's just kind of more of a redirect, seeing, like, I don't know, showing them ways that they can still exhibit those behaviors, just not in that way.
Yeah, just more like learning how to deal with it. And that's where also trust comes in the picture. Trust from the dog to the human and from the human to the dog, that they know that the dog is not biting for whatever reason they think it would be. It's really just the instincts that are coming in.
Gotcha. Okay, so that makes sense. So what I also admire about that is that there's that line of communication that's opened with you guys to help them try their best to, I don't know, train it without getting training, or the tips and tricks that you guys are willing to provide and work with.
Yeah.
And I know that we said earlier that you do training as well with Simply Perfect. Am I saying that right? Simply Perfect? I saw that it's spelled a little bit different.
Yes, perfect with the
Perfect. Okay. Yeah. With the Y. I thought that was clever. So when did Simply Perfect's grooming and training come into play? When did you start that and jump into that entrepreneurship side?
I started grooming with our medical director from the rescue. We went to the boarding place and to the vet clinic where we have dogs boarded. Just went in there and we're sitting on the floor, basically starting to clean up the dogs, because some of them, if they're coming from the shelter or previous farm dogs, they are in rough shape. So they needed long hours of brushing. And then I read a lot on Facebook, a lot of posts where people were frustrated because they bring their dog to the groomer and they get shaved down and they pick up a naked dog. Great Pyrenees, they have a double coat, which is insulating to them, keeps them warm in winter and cool in summer, like kind of like sheep do too. So I was thinking more about that, and if I want to put that in like a daily work, or if it's too much, because it is physically a hard job to do. So at the beginning, I just offered it for a couple of people from the rescue, some friends that had Great Pyrenees. So I took their dogs and started cleaning them up, doing grooming. So I had a little setup in the backyard where I started that, and then more people were asking, and then I went and got my license and got the business running. So I'm doing that since a couple of years now, and I really love it. love working with the dogs and got to know some really great people.
Yeah. And again, it sounds like, I don't know. I just love the idea of how things just fall into people's lap.
Yes.
How you just had the opportunity, you saw that there was a problem that, and again, I'm sure that the groomers, they're doing their best, et cetera, but it's just like with the people that get the breed as a pet. There's very specific considerations that you may not know about, that you need an expert's advice and help and assistance. So I think that's amazing that you're able to kind of jump in there and see that as a need and kind of jump in and help serve those that have the Great Pyrenees at home.
Yeah, and I really enjoy doing that. In the rescue, our whole adoption process, we have an adoption team with 6 adoption coordinators, and all of them are staying in contact with the adopters after the adoption. So when people are taking the dog home, they check in with them. How is it going? Like over weeks that's going, and then just being there and listening and calling out to us, then to the trainers, that we can help if there's something bigger going on. If it's smaller issues, they can help too, because everybody has so much advice to share and to help new adopters that they can find their way, even if it's like a first time Great Pyrenees owner. There are always things coming up that you did not deal with before with a different breed. And that's very helpful too with the adoption team.
Yeah, just having a team of so many people. I mean, just the combined years of experience, I'm sure, is amazing. Yeah. So having like that group of experts that can give great advice, that have pretty much at this point, I'm sure, seen it all with the breed.
Yeah.
And can just help out in any different way.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. How cool. Well, I don't want to keep you too much longer, but Tom did mention, and you brought it up earlier, about you're kind of like the go-to for the pregnant mamas. Is that how it works? Or you just end up with a whole bunch of puppies? Like, is that the best job ever? Or what is that like for you?
Yeah, it is the best job ever, but it's also a lot of work. Those 3 weeks are kind of easy because the mama dog is taking care of everything. She's cleaning up after them. She's feeding them. But then after 3.5 to 4 weeks, you have to start supplementing food. And then with eating more, the mess is getting more too. So there's a lot to clean up always. And then little puppies are running and rolling in their own poopies. So they need lots of baths, and it's a full-time job, basically.
Well, good thing they're living with a professional groomer and that can help out and train that all. That's so interesting. And because I saw, what was it? I think Tom said that Normandy was around 130 pounds. Is that pretty much the max size, or how fast did they get to adult size, and how big is adult size?
So they grow pretty quick. So I would say around 8 months of age, you have a big puppy, a really big puppy. We always tell people that in the first year they grow in height, and in the second year they're filling out. So my first Great Pyrenees that I had, he was 170 pounds. He was just really massive, huge dog. Most of the Pyrenees that we have in the rescue are probably around 100 pounds, 120. Some of the smaller ones, often females, are around 80 pounds. So between 80 and 120, I would say, is the most. But then you find bigger ones, 140.
So these aren't just 10, 15-pound wiener dogs or chihuahuas. These are huge, basically the weight of some humans.
Yeah.
So, I can only imagine the food and, like you're saying, the messes that they can make. But it sounds like they're in great care, and they have someone that, again, is knowledgeable, that knows what they're doing. So I'm sure they appreciate that in their own doggy way. But just to kind of wrap up the conversation, thank you again for hanging out with us. And sometimes we try to leave the audience with a freebie or a parting word of wisdom. And I saw that you had a little bit of an encouragement that you wanted to share with the listeners in terms of volunteering with their local shelter.
Yeah, I would just say if everybody could pick an organization of their choice and volunteer for them. It helps out big time in the community, and it makes your heart happy.
Yep, I agree 100%. You don't need to be a foster. You don't need to do the crazy thing. Even just a few hours here and there, I'm sure would help take the load off of you guys, help out in any way. And
yeah, we always need transport people and, just volunteers for adoption days that are holding a dog. You don't need to foster. You don't need to do that. We are grateful for everybody who signs up to foster.
Please foster, but you don't have to. But it'd be great if you did.
That would be great.
I'm sure. But no, I'll go ahead and if people want to learn more about the rescue or reach out to you guys for help or adopt their own Great Pyrenees with a lot of extra research before you do so, how would people best get in contact with you or follow you on socials or anything? What would be the best route?
Over our website, it's greatpyreatlanta.com, or then Facebook, Instagram. We're on all the platforms too.
Perfect. And I see that you guys have an event coming up here pretty soon at the end of the month, it looks like. So
yes.
I think this episode should be out by then. Worst case, I'll share it on social media so that people can see it. But all of your guys' contact information will be down in the show notes in the description. And follow along, check them out. And God, you guys have so many animals. I was scrolling through them before the conversation. Yeah. And they're precious, just little floofs all the way out to the big clouds. But anyway,
we have a lot right now.
Anyway, Sabine, thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with us today.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thanks again to our listeners for hanging out with us. Be sure to rate and review the podcast. Share it with someone that is thinking about getting a Great Pyrenees or just loves dogs. And check them out once again on socials and their website. And once again, thank you everybody so much for spending some time with Sabine and I today and just being willing to listen and hear all about the amazing work that the Great Pyrenees Rescue in Atlanta does. Once again, all the info is going to be in the show notes, but I think really my biggest takeaway from today's episode is just really knowing how everything is connected. The implications from COVID of people adopting the animals to the current economic issues we're having in the country with inflation and everything else really impact more than we think it does. So again, if you have the time, if you have the resources, please consider reaching out to your local animal rescue, volunteering, supporting, donating, anything that you can do to really help them out. And as always, please leave a rating and review for the podcast. The more people we're able to reach, the more people we can inspire and encourage to help those that need it most, whether it's other people, animals, the environment, whatever. The more reach this podcast has, the more good and magic I truly believe that we can add to the world. So once again, leave a rating, and as always, have fun, stay safe, and be yourself. I'll catch you guys next time.